Hi, everybody. It's Katie Rose. Sorry that we're starting a few minutes late for some reason. The button to share to our Facebook page is missing. I don't know if that's a change that Facebook made. So we're just going to do it live on Zoom, I guess, without sharing to Facebook. And then I'll upload the recording to Facebook later. So are you there? Hi, Jessie.
Well, hi, Katie.
How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm fabulous. So are we going to do like last time and basically just start with you and invite Brenda in, or is she going to be part of the whole conversation?
Nope, she's coming right now.
Rock on. Let me see her beautiful face.
Oh my gosh. She's coming.
Hold on. Your beautiful face is coming. Hi, Miss Katie.
Hi, sweetheart. How are you?
Fabulous.
You look fabulous as usual.
Thank
Making
you.
me jealous with all your skin-tastic stuff. And
well, and I've lost 40 pounds.
Well, darling, I always thought you looked gorgeous, and you still do.
Thank you.
You still do. So we have quite a few people on already, which is wonderful. We have one of my little yappers in the background going. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to like step out, not really, but like mute myself so that you guys can take over. You've done this for us before, so you know what you're doing, and then after you do your thing, we'll take questions. So right now everyone's on mute other than you guys, I believe. If not, I'll make sure that happens, and then afterwards we can have more of a conversation where people can do some questions and answering. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Okay, I gotta get muted though, because this one.
You're like the gappy dog.
Wow. All right, so great to see you guys, and I'm looking for another great conversation, guys.
You too.
Oh, evening, Grace. Hush, hush.
Well, first off, hi to everybody who decided to spend their Sunday afternoon with us. We appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. So we've done this presentation with Katie and attached families a couple times before, and we wanted to do it again because I know there were people who couldn't attend last time and a lot more who wanted to attend again. And I know going through the different groups that I belong to on Facebook and just hearing some of the stories and the families, pretty much a lot of the times at a loss on what they can do with their kids and wondering if there's any hope, and wondering, if their own sanity can be saved, because working with these kids and adopting these kids is a hard process. And a lot of times when you adopt these kids or foster these kids, you're not told about the plethora of mental health issues that come along with it, let alone provided services to help with these kids. So that's why we wanted to do this presentation again. So I'm Jessie, and this is my wife, Brenda.
I'm Brenda. Can I pipe in on that really
absolutely.
quick? I really think, first and foremost, to all of you men and women, you ladies and gents who take on these children, your hearts are truly phenomenal. And I just can't thank you guys enough for the strength that you have, and the moments you feel like, am I doing enough? Feeling like I can't do anymore. What more can I do? And just feeling like you're at the end of your rope going, am I crazy? Is this going on? Is that going on? And I guess I've never been where you're at as far as raising a child, but I was raising my husband.
Yeah,
for a lack of a better word. And I don't mean that as a jab at him. I mean it as in him learning to rely on me and allow me to nurture him in a loving way, okay, out of love. This is all out of love. But I just wanted to say, like, community services and county services don't let you know what you're getting yourself into. You feel it on your heart to adopt a child or foster a child because you want to do the right thing. You want to help. You feel it on your heart. You know, you feel like, I want to do something. I want to make a change in a child's life. And when you get this child, you know, because I've prayed a lot about what to say, how to say it. And like I said, I've never been in your ladies' positions. I've never fostered a child. I've never adopted a child with reactive attachment disorder. But they don't let you know what these children come with. And when you bring it to their social worker, or when you bring it to them, they almost make you feel like you're the crazy one. You're not loving them enough. You're not doing enough. It's you. You kind of feel like everyone is against you. And I am so grateful for attached families. And I'm so grateful for all of the online social media help that there is out there to help you guys. And I just want to commend you all for the job well done and being here today, making the choice to be a part of this and to sit in on this talk. And hopefully we could give you guys some insight and help you along your way, and to let you know you guys are brave. You guys are courageous. And I commend you all for what it is that you're doing and the children's lives that you're changing, even though you feel at times you're not doing anything, or you feel like, I'm not making an impact. I'm not changing this child. This is not working. You are. And they don't want to admit it because they don't want you to know that they need you. Because if you leave them and if you give them back, then where are they? Then they've needed you and they've wanted you, and then you have abandoned them. You have given them back. You don't want them anymore. So their distance is what causes them to be safe. That's their safety net. That's where, and this is just from my perspective of my husband taking years to say, I do need you. I do want you, you know? And so I'm speaking from a relationship from my marriage. So he has told me, and throughout the 21 years together, he has told me things that workers have done, things that people have done, and it changed him and it impacted him. And these kids, you are impacting them. Don't think for 1 second, but they don't want to admit it. They don't want to say, I need you and I want you, or whatever the case is, you're changing my life. They're not going to say that, because the more they push, if they are pushing you, you're doing something. And what is that saying? Oh, if a boy likes you, he's mean to you. You know, as kids growing up, we're always told, oh, Jacob is picking on me. Oh, he likes you. That's why. I'm like, we need to change that, because these kids, our daughters, think that boys being mean to them means they like them. But that's a whole nother thing. But I just want you to know you are changing their life. You are making a difference. They're just not going to say it. They're not going to tell you. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. And then that's something that we'll definitely talk about, but that's great insight, you know, that you shared. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Payne.
One thing I do want to let you guys know is I have a hard time with eye contact. So if I'm not looking at the camera, don't take it the wrong way. It's just something that
Makes you uncomfortable.
makes me uncomfortable. Nothing to do with you guys.
That's all right. I'll look at all of you. Okay. I'll give you the eye contact. I'm comfortable with eye contact.
She's comfortable with eye contact. I have an issue with eye contact.
Well, I'm glad that you said that.
Anyhow.
There he is being vulnerable.
So back to what we were talking about. I was born in 1980. I'll give you a brief little background history on myself. Born in 1980 here in Modesto, California, to a single mother who was an alcoholic. Addict and alcoholic. I had fetal alcohol syndrome. I had also what was called hydrocephalus, which they had to put a VP shunt tube in my head to bypass the blockage in my brain for the cerebral spinal fluid.
Can I interject really quick?
Yes.
Sorry. Hydrocephalus is what's known as water on the brain. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay.
Just that.
So water on the brain. And that's
a mental handicap.
Well, that was due to my mother overdosing on Tylenol. Come to find out later in my years, she took a whole bottle of Tylenol. And that's what
Didn't she try to commit suicide?
That's why she took the whole bottle of Tylenol.
Okay.
Yes.
Pregnant?
Yes. Pregnant.
Ladies, like 21 years, I'm still finding new stuff.
So She was a heavy drinker, drug addict, single mother. I had a sister as well, who was about a year and a half older than I was. And because of my mother's choices, we were often left alone by ourselves to fend for ourselves. We were severely abused as kids. Different men would come in and out of the homes wherever we were at, whether it be apartments, staying at a friend's house. We stayed in cars. We stayed underneath bridges. You name it, we probably stayed there. We never had consistency. And that was from birth until about 5 years old.
Ate off the floor.
Ate off
crumbs,
the floor.
whatever you could find. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, tears up my heart.
Yeah, it was bad. She didn't know how to be a mother. And she kind of stood in the background while different men would come in and out of the house and do what they wanted and pleased with my sister and myself.
Spankings, beatings
And spankings.
Yeah, we'll leave some other stuff out.
Other stuff we're going to leave out because it's pretty tense, but it was bad. And finally, CPS stepped in and took us out of the home. And in case you guys had a question on why that wasn't done sooner, a lot of people kind of didn't believe that it was happening. They swept it under the rug. Family members would turn a blind eye to it.
It was also the 80s, and the 80s was different. Just like you guys being adopted into separate families, they didn't have the laws that they have today that keep people together. So CPS and like services was totally different in the 80s than it is today. Not very much, but it's a different time.
Yeah. So we were eventually placed in foster care with the agreement that my mother would get her act together and get us back and show the courts that they can provide a stable environment for my sister and I. That didn't happen. And we were placed in foster care into 2 different families. And the reason for that was my sister and I had the same mother, but different fathers. And they found my sister's father, and he agreed to sign away his rights. And she was able to adoptable into a different family.
You were Cherokee Indian or Choctaw. You're Choctaw Indian, and they had to get permission from the Indian reservation.
Right. Correct.
Which you almost went to an Indian reservation.
Almost.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I was put in a different foster family with a family who's located in Palo Alto, California. No other kids in the home at the time. So
are you talking about the Hogsett?
The Hogsett family.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you were in other you were in foster homes before you went to the Hogsett.
No, that was the only one.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you were in shelters.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, children's shelter. And then foster home. And the Hogsetts were my foster family. And like I said, they didn't have any other kids in the home. So if you can imagine going from chaos to absolute silence, big change. And my sister and I were kind of used to the chaos because we learned with our mother not being there that we kind of had to fend for ourselves. We had to find our own food to eat. My sister, as young as she was the mother figure to me, would take care of me, would comfort me, would bring me food, would hug me,
ketchup packets,
whatever I needed, she made sure that she provided. She was 5 years old at the time, and I was 3. Okay. So when we were split up into 2 different families, that was probably the most painful thing to that point that I had experienced emotionally, because she was
consistent.
She was me. She was my go-to person. She was the one who I knew genuinely cared about me. She was
your safe.
She was my safe. Yeah.
She was your safe place.
She was definitely my safe place. So in the foster family, again, eerie, quiet, coming from chaos. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. I still had the notion that my mother was going to come back eventually to bring me back into her home. And you may be thinking, with all the abuse and neglect that we went through, how could I still wish that my biological mother would come back and get us? Well,
because you're a child.
All I knew was the abuse and neglect. I didn't know anything different, so I thought that was normal. Yeah. Okay?
You didn't know there was anything wrong with that.
No, I didn't know there was anything wrong with that. I just thought, hey, that's what parents do, and okay, so be it, But I still had that mother-son bond with her. So
Well, you loved your mom.
I did love my mother. I
Yeah.
cared for her. She was my mother. So going into the Hogsett's family again as a foster child with the pretense that my mother was going to come back and get us, I felt I didn't have to listen to the foster family at all. It was just a temporary place for me to be. Nothing they say would, matter to me. Whatever. I was there for a couple days, couple weeks, whatever. My mother was going to come back. Over time, I started to see that wasn't happening, and behavior started to surface, such as anger, stealing, lying, only around my parents. Now, when I was out in the public, I acted like a little angel, and I'm sure a lot of you guys listening are familiar with, well, why did these kids act like perfect angels out in public, but behind closed doors, they're completely different? And why is it that when people look at my kids, they think they're perfect and they blame the parents and saying there's nothing wrong with the kids, it's all the parents' fault? And I was good at that, the manipulation part of it, because
It's almost like a game for you.
it was a game.
Yeah.
It's what it was. I didn't want to be in that foster family at all. So
you did everything to get in trouble to get you out.
I did to get in trouble,
There
to
you
get me
go.
out, and to show that these were bad people and I was a perfect person. Didn't work at all. I ended up being adopted by the foster family when I was
That you were
7.
trying to get
I was
out
trying
of.
to get out of. They finally found my father, and he signed his rights away and was finally adopted by this family. And I remember right before the adoption, my mother, the Hogsetts, my mother, had asked me if I wanted to be adopted by them. And
Well,
7 years old, I
yeah.
didn't really understand what that meant or anything like that.
So how did you feel when she asked you that? Did she say, do you want us to adopt you? Or do you remember what she said or how she said it?
She said along the lines, would you like a permanent place to stay? Do you like it here? Do you want us to be your new mom and dad? And at that point, I just kind of gave up that my biological mother was coming back to get us. And at 7 years old, I just kind of gave up altogether. And I said, fine, if that's what it is, that's what we're going to do.
Did you say yes, or did you say that's what you want? I mean, I know, trying to think back that far ago, at 7 years old, do you remember what your response was?
Yeah, I told her, yes, that would be great. Now I was lying through my teeth. That's not what I wanted. But, at that point, I just kind of gave up on everything and went to the courts the next day, and the judge signed the paperwork, and I was officially adopted just like that. Now, my biological mother, I was, what, year and a half before I got adopted?
Yeah.
I believe year and a half, maybe 2 years.
And do you think you were like, were you testing them? Were you like, oh, how bad can I be before they give me back?
I'm sure I was, at some point, but that didn't come until later on, when I really kind of,
the honeymoon phase was over.
Honeymoon phase was over.
Oh, wait, that was the honeymoon phase?
Yeah, it gets worse.
Oh, gosh.
So they found my biological mother, and the courts agreed that she can come visit at the Hogsett's place.
I don't agree with that. I really don't, especially if you're being adopted. Go ahead. I'll let you finish. Sorry. I keep interrupting.
So my biological mother was allowed by the courts to come and visit, supervised visits, day visits. And she would come, and she was sober. She wasn't drinking alcohol. And she said that she had missed me. Now, the problem was, when you introduce the biological parents back into the picture after you're trying to create a stable home and environment for these kids,
my client's going through right now.
It ruins all progress that you've done with these kids. It reverts
2 steps
right
forward, 10
back
steps back
to anger and manipulation, because now that she was back in the picture, oh, she's coming back to get me. And now I definitely don't have to listen to these people.
Right.
So every time she would come and then she would leave, I'd be extremely angry, yelling through the house, acting out, and it was just bad. And there were times when she would call and say she was coming, and my parents would tell me, hey, your mother's going to come today. Are you going to behave? Do you promise that when she leaves, you're going to be on your best behavior? Yeah. Deep down inside, I'm like, whatever, just wanted her
You're just
to come.
saying things just to pacify
Just
them.
saying things to appease them and
Yeah.
pacify them.
Yeah.
Well, it got to the point where she would say she would come and then not show up.
You'd be sitting at the window.
Sitting at the window, looking out the
I
gate,
remember
waiting
you
for
telling
her
me
to
that.
come, and she wouldn't show up at all. And that hurts really bad because, she was my mother, and that's who I wanted. These people, I still had not formed a bond with these people.
Even at this time?
Even at this time.
So how many years was that?
Bond.
So from the time you were fostered by them, and then your mom would say she'd come and didn't come to pick you up. Do you know the timeline? Like how many?
I don't know exact timeline on what it was, but
I'm saying, like, is this a couple years, 3 years, 4 years? Is it more?
3-4 years, maybe.
So 3-4 years you're with them and you're somewhat doing okay. And then bam, it's just not.
Right. So finally they stopped telling me that she would call because it got to a bad habit. She wouldn't start showing up, and then she started drinking again, and they just stopped telling me.
Who knows what she was going
through.
through.
And they thought it's best, and they talked to my social worker to just stop telling me altogether that she would be coming because of the problems it created in the household.
It just did more damage.
Way more damage.
Yeah.
Exactly. Way more damage. And I know I've responded to a couple comments in some of the RAD and Detached groups with this very topic. On some of the parents were asking, do we let the bio parents back into the children's lives is it a good or a bad thing?
Not good.
I would tell you it's not good, especially if you're trying to make progress with these kids and get them healing in the right direction. I would strongly suggest that you don't do that unless, of course, it's a court order that you have to do it.
But a lot of foster parents, and I know state to state, all states are different, and I'm not trying to interrupt. I want to talk about this. I have several clients. One client has a 4-year-old child that she is fostering, and we have talked during services, waxing and whatnot, and I gave her one of Jessie's books, and she's like blown away, like, oh my gosh, your husband has gone through this. And in a nutshell, she said, as the foster parent, she makes the decisions because he is in her custody. She's his legal guardian. I don't know the legalities of all that, but you as the foster parent, check your states, if you have the power, if it's in you and you have to make the decisions based on what is best for that child. I told her I wouldn't do that, or like they would go visit, they would have monitored visits and whatnot. And he'd come back a mess, rebellious, wetting the bed, having all these issues. And she said, this is not good for the child. And, so she made stipulations like he could go as long as the mom and dad do X, Y, Z. Okay. So she had the control, and it wasn't in a bad way. It was what it was for that child. So she would talk with his worker, and the worker said, he's with you. So as long as the child is with you, temporarily, permanently, whatever the choice is, you have the power to set his schedule. He needs consistency. He needs a schedule. He needs, what's the word I'm looking for? Stability. And so she was just trying to create stability that he never had. And like I said, we're in the state of California. And so her being his foster mom, single, because she's not married, she's a single foster mom with a 4-year-old child, little boy, who is showing behaviors or what's the word I'm looking for? So he's showing these behaviors, and she'll text me, she'll call me, we'll have a conversation. I'm not a professional. I don't claim to be a professional, but I was like, nope. I don't think that's good for him. And she's like, you know what? I don't think it's good for him either. And I said, you make the decisions that are the best for this child. So you are the acting person in his life to make decisions that are best for him. Do what is best for him. And you stand your ground and be firm and say, no, this is not good for him. We're not going to go till 10 o'clock at night because he needs to be in bed at 7:30 p.m. And slowly but surely, the child started, at 4, the child calls her mom. Now, I don't know if the child has RAD or whatnot, but the point is that she has shown him stability and security and making the choices for him that's best for him. So I'm just saying is that the instability that you had, you know, and your parents at that time, your mom coming in and out, coming to an appointment, you know, saying I'm going to come and not coming, your parents could have said, okay, no more visits. And that's that. So, but I'm just saying that as a foster mom, as a foster parent, check into, I mean, you guys pretty much know all this stuff, and I may be a broken record, but see what your guidelines are. See what your, I don't like to use the word power, but whatever your power is, whatever it is to do in your power, do it. And that's what is in the best interest of the child, and especially getting that person through what they're going through. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to put that in because I don't know if everybody knows, but I have bipolar 1, PTSD. I'm a hot mess myself, and my brain just jumps from place to place. So I go, can I say something? And that's why I jump in, because I think of something and I want to say it. Otherwise, I will forget. So that's all. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so back to the Hogsetts. Now, I want to kind of fast forward a little bit, kind of get through some important stuff. Right about 8 years old, well, prior to that, we had moved to England. My dad had worked for IBM, and so he got transferred over to England for a business project. So we had gone to England for 2 years. In fact, that's where I learned to read, and that's where I learned to write. And I remember we went there in 1985, and they had to get permission from the courts because I was still a foster child at the time. They had to get permission from the courts in order to take me overseas.
Out of the country.
Of the country. Now, from 1985 to 1987, we were there. And I remember distinctly thinking that I didn't want to go because you
won't see your mom.
I won't see my biological mother.
And now
we're definitely not going to see her because we're going to be thousands of miles away, and how's she going to know where I'm at? How she's going to come get me? So I definitely fought that tooth and nail, but ended up going. And the reason why I'm talking about the England trip, and I'll explain that in a minute, is because my parents were travel agents at the time. My dad worked for IBM. My mother was a travel agent. So every year we'd go traveling to Europe, to India, to Thailand, Africa, all those places. Nothing that I wanted to do because I wanted to be home. But it was a good household that I was in. I definitely wasn't deprived of anything. I wasn't lacking anything. I had clothes, I had food, I had shelter, I had experiences. None of that mattered to me because I wanted my biological mother back. And why am I saying that? Because these kids, when families adopt these kids or foster these kids, they think if I just show them love, if I give them everything they don't have or never had before, that's going to change their behaviors. And it's not. Yeah. Okay. And I'll explain that in a little bit why, but I just wanted to touch on that because it was on my brain before I forgot.
You want to write that down?
But no matter how much love you give these kids, no matter how much you think that I'm going to give them, everything in the world that they didn't have, it's going to change them.
Monetary, emotional, everything.
And that's in a large part because of the trauma that we've already gone through and the way our brain is still developing to this point.
How it's wired.
And how it's wired that we don't like it. So back in 1987, once we got back from England, and I was officially adopted by this family, I started forming a bond with my adoptive dad. His name was Jerry. Forming a bond with him because I'd never had a father figure in my life before. Now, if you can picture my dad, Jerry, he's about 5'11", worked for IBM, very smart, into computers, but also loved to go camping, loved the outdoors, loved to fish, stuff I love to do. Was a really kind of down-to-earth type person where he played Legos with me. He showed interest in stuff I like to do. My mother, in my mind, I was never going to get close to her because I already had a mother and nobody was going to take her place. So the behaviors really started as we came back from England, and once I got adopted, the behaviors started to where I started verbally pushing my adoptive mother away, never forming a bond with her. And The reason why I'm talking about that, because again, in some of the groups, and I wanted to address this for some people who asked me to, is some of the groups are saying, well, how come these kids seem to gravitate towards my husband more than they do me?
Because if they don't have a dad.
And that's why.
Right.
Okay. These kids, wherever they came from, whatever their past history was,
they could be with a single mom.
Abuse or neglect or a single mother, the damage has been done. They're not going to gravitate towards another female figure in their life. More so, they're going to do it with the males, because the males weren't the ones really doing the damage. It was the female. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but
just to have understanding.
Right. These kids, the first person they're going to trust is their biological mother. That's who they came out of. That's the imprint they first got when they're born. That's the skin-to-skin contact. That's the first person they're going to learn to trust. And whatever that mother does is what they're going to deem as, good or bad. But that's the first person they're going to trust. So when they go to a different family, they're going to immediately kind of gravitate towards the male figure, and also do what we call splitting of the parents. So I was
pinning one parent against the other. Yeah.
Famous for this as a kid. I would go to my dad because I knew he would say yes, and then my mother would say no. And I said, well, my dad said I can do this, and blah blah blah, and it just created chaos, rifts between in the household, because I knew my mother. She grew up with a strict family, so she was kind of set in her ways. She didn't have any kids of her own. My dad had older kids, so he already knew what it was like to be a parent. So again, I would definitely play them both against each other.
Not realizing that's what you were doing, because you don't know the wording of it, but like, oh, I want ice cream. I'm not going to ask mom.
Yeah, I'm going to ask dad because
it's 10 o'clock at night and he's going to get it.
So I learned to do that real quick. Now, as far as the behaviors go, again, coming back from England, the lying, the manipulating,
that all picked up.
It all started to progress really bad.
Well, because you're like, oh, my biological mom is here. And it just triggered in you to think.
At the point, once I got adopted again, and I knew my biological mother wasn't coming back to get me, I started thinking, okay, how else can I leave this place? How else can I get them to give me up? Because consistency is one thing you want to have with these kids. My parents were consistent. I hated it. Okay. Even though consistency is what you want with these kids,
that doesn't mean they're going to like it.
They're not going to like it, because they came from a household that was definitely inconsistent and chaos.
Yeah.
Okay. So I started thinking, how could I get out of this household? How can I be so bad that my social worker come pick me up and they'll send me somewhere else? So the lying about everything. One thing with reactive attachment disorder kids is we lie about everything, and we believe
and for no reason.
Yeah, for no reason. No reason whatsoever. We could be caught with an open jar of chocolate ice cream in our hands, and our parents, did you eat that? No. And we got chocolate all. We lie about anything and everything for no reason whatsoever. We're pathological liars. It's just what.
Is it pathological or compulsive lying?
Pathological lying.
Okay.
And then we would steal. Why do we steal? Because again, as a younger age, we learn to get what we want.
Or no, when you would have what you wanted, you would have it, and then you didn't know if you were going to if and when you're going to get it again. So,
but it started because as children, 3 basic things: love, shelter, food. And we wouldn't have those as kids. We learned to get what we wanted by any means necessary. So that's where the stealing comes in. Okay, because our brains are starting to get wired to do certain things.
But even if your parents had the money to get it, like, wasn't it something that you did just because you did? Like,
not to begin with. To start, it was to get what I wanted, what I felt I needed. I didn't want to ask them for it, because I had already learned to do whatever it takes to get whatever it is I needed. Now, back to your point, dear, is
you keep getting out of the picture. Sorry. It's okay. It's coming
back to your point. I started stealing more because I wanted certain things that I know my parents wouldn't let me have. They wouldn't pay for it. So I wanted it, and I stole it. It didn't matter. I'd break into people's cars and take it.
How old were you?
8. You know, I'd walk.
I know
to
that was
school.
in your book.
It is.
That you
It's in
would
there.
do. Yeah.
My parents had.
It always catches me off every time.
My parents had an office in their house, and inside the office was locked cabinets. Inside the locked cabinet was one of those old cigar boxes, and inside that cigar box was stacks of $100s and $50 bills.
You just helped yourself.
I just helped myself, and the funny part, looking back on it, if you can picture this,
not funny, but ironic.
If you can picture this in your mind. I thought by stealing from the middle of the stack, they wouldn't notice that it was gone, because for whatever reason, that was my logic. If I took from the top, they'd miss it. If I took from the middle, they wouldn't miss it. That was my logic. And the reason why I stole the money is I had no social skills whatsoever. None. I couldn't make friends. I didn't know how to make friends. I didn't know how to act around people. Again, it was me. Whatever I needed to do, I did. But I found out that if I start handing out money at school, $20 bills, I became really popular, and I got a lot of friends that way. So the more friends I would make, the more money I would steal. And then I'd go to the store and buy candy, cat guns, gum, whatever the case may be. I bought it. I was a hoarder as a kid. I didn't need it, but I wanted it, you know, just because I could get it, I wanted it. And so the lying, the stealing, the manipulation, and I would say about 9 years old, I started having a fascination with fire setting. Just being a pyromaniac. I would throw matches into 5-gallon drums of fuel. Thank God it never caught on fire, but stuff like that I would do. I'd start off with burning leaves with a magnifying glass, and then setting things on fire outside. Just some fascination with fire. I started having a fascination with knives and guns. I'd start, going to the store and stealing knives and
like little pocket knives,
and going to the library and checking out books on guns. That fascinated me. And looking back, I strongly believe it was because the pain and the hurt that I went through as a kid started changing my brain into, well, I'm going to start to hurt people before they can hurt me from now on. Yeah. I started sleeping with knives underneath my pillow. At about age 10, I contemplated, for lack of a better word, killing my parents because I started getting so angry. I didn't want to be there. I didn't like the consistency. As I started getting older and my brain started to mature a little bit more, I would reflect back on what happened as a kid, and it would make me extremely angry. I remember we had a cat in the house that I would strangle, not to try to kill it, but just enough, and then I would let go and watch it suffer. It's sick, I know, but as a kid,
just the
anger and the frustration that I had within me, that's how it would come out. Then I started using knives to cut my wrist and to cut different places on my body.
Your inner thighs
and legs and whatever, to watch, blood come out is a release, just as an anger release. So I felt something,
because you didn't feel anything.
I didn't feel anything. I had no compassion. I had no empathy, nothing. It was just a me world, and screw everybody else. I was going to do what I wanted. I didn't care who I hurt in the process. And it was bad.
But that's the severity of it. And that's how reactive attachment disorder, like the worst of the worst cases,
Right.
So I'm just so glad you're not like that.
Well, hang on a minute.
Anymore.
Age 11, my parents, at this point, didn't know what to do. I was too much of a danger to be inside the house, too much of a threat to them. So I come home one day from school, and the door's locked, and there's a note on the door to go around to the backyard. And I go around in the backyard, my dad's out there and my mother's out there. And they said, we can't have you in the house because, you're
a threat.
You're a threat. You're not only a threat to us, you're a threat to yourself.
They
locked me out of the house, and in the backyard, I had a tent back there with a porta potty and an ice chest full of food. That was my new home. Now, to me, I was like, cool.
Yeah,
I'm
you get
going
to
camping. I
camping.
can come
Yeah,
in and
I
out
remember
as I
that.
want. I finally don't have to listen to what they say. And to me, that was kind of paradise. You know, I was finally getting what I wanted. At the same time, my mother starts doing some research, because up until this point, I went to therapy, I went to counselors, but I manipulated them so much that they said there was nothing wrong with me. It was all my parents' fault.
Yeah.
You know,
And then your mom had Suzanne started having like resentment towards you and a lot of anger and stuff with you, towards you.
Right. She did. And she had anger and resentment towards me because I never bonded with her. And
right.
As much love as she gave me, again, that wasn't going to be enough.
Right.
You can't change.
Well, and even now to this day, I mean, I'm not saying to this day, but I mean, I've been with you for 21 years and the very first time meeting your mom and being around your mom and all that stuff, like it literally almost seemed like you were that 5-year-old little boy always letting her down. That's how it always came across. Like in her later years, like that's where it came to. So yeah, totally.
So
you turn it off?
So
no, it's done.
She went through and she finally researched a little bit and talked to my social worker and talked through some professionals. And at age 12, finally, I was diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder. So from all these years not figuring out what's going on, and of course, like back earlier when I said, when you get these kids, you're not giving the resources or the tools or the information on what these kids' mental health and what they come with. You're kind of left to figure it out on your own. And so that's what happened with my parents. I finally was diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder at age 12. And around the same time, I was living in the backyard. You know, the social worker tells my parents, I understand your frustrations, but at the same time, you can't be doing that. That's illegal. You can't do that with the kids. So we ended up taking a drive. Yeah, we ended up taking a drive. I remember this one night, my mom and dad load me in the car and we take a drive, and I thought we were going out to dinner or something like that. We go to this place in San Jose, which as soon as we pulled up, it looked eerily familiar to me. And when we got inside, it instantly brought back memories. It was, in fact, the children's shelter that my sister and I were at right before we were put in foster care in San Jose.
It was the same one?
Same one, same children's shelter.
Oh, I didn't know
Yep, same exact one.
Like, I didn't know it was the same. I know that they took you to a shelter.
Right.
Because of them locking you out of the house, but I didn't know it was the same one.
Same children's shelter.
Wow.
But as I was left there, and I knew I would be left there because I remember what happened, prior.
The first time,
but as I left there, a big sigh of relief came over me.
Like a relief.
Like, thank God I'm finally out of that house. Thank God I don't have to listen to him anymore. You know, I was happy in a sick way. I was happy to finally be out of that place and
not be there anymore.
You know, I didn't care, again, that people cared for me. You
were just numb.
Faze me. I was numb to any kind of feeling whatsoever. You know, I was glad to finally move on, get out somewhere else, and
you're like, on to the next.
Whatever, on to the next thing, you know. Yeah. So I'm in the children's shelter, and I'm there for about 3 months in that children's shelter. And at that point, 3 months goes by, and my social worker comes, and I end up going into a residential treatment facility in Northern California, Redding, California, Victor Youth Services, which is a level 14 residential treatment facility. And if you don't know how those work,
all the states are different.
Yeah, all the states are different. But in California, you have level 0, which is like your foster care, and it goes all the way to level 14. And level 14 is the highest level of residential treatment care, which is also considered a hands-on facility. So they can restrain you at that facility if you become a danger to yourself or others.
So if you get kicked out of level 14, what's the next step? CYA?
CYA, juvenile hall,
Correctional Youth
CYA,
Authorities, which is prison for kids.
Out of state to a lockdown facility.
Yeah.
So level 14 facility, I was there for 2 years. First couple months there was the honeymoon phase. Again, people thought that I didn't need to be there. They didn't understand, you know,
excuse me,
why I was there. Yeah, she'll be back. She's got to use the restroom. But after the honeymoon phase wore off, I started letting my true colors kind of come through, and then they really understood why I needed to be there. I would get in fights all the time. I would assault the staff. I'd run away. I would steal. I would do a lot of property damage by putting holes in the wall, destroying, whatever was around me. It got to the point where they thought that I would end up having to go to juvenile hall or California Youth Authority if my behavior had continued. But ended up not having to do that. So after 2 years, the cool thing is I ended up I graduated that program after 2 years as one in the group home history as one of the most successful kids to come out of that group home. And the reason for that being is every point in your life, whether you have mental health or not, you're going to come across 1 or 2 or 3 certain people that really connect with you. And as a kid with mental health issues, there was 2 staff members at that group home who really connected with me, who understood that love wasn't going to be enough, who understood that just by giving me things wasn't going to be enough. And they saw my potential. They saw what I could do if I became successful. And they got down on my level, not on hands and knees level, but kind of put themselves in my shoes to understand what I was going through and where I came from. It took a while for me to build any kind of trust with them because to that point, I trusted no one. I didn't want to trust anybody. But they were consistent with everything they did, with the rules, the regulations. They were consistent with the rewards. And over a course of 8 to 10 months, I started to see that they genuinely cared. And I started to open up little by little to them, talking about my issues and what bugged me and what made me happy and whatnot. And because they took their time and they understood where I was coming from, it started to change me just a little bit. And when you adopt these kids or foster these kids or work with the kids, we want to see change right away. And sometimes we feel if we don't see, instant change, we give up thinking that we're not helping these kids. What we have to do is look for the smallest of changes in these kids and build on that. You have to be able to get down on their level and understand where they came from and understand what they're going through. And I know it's extremely difficult because we will test and test and test you till your breaking point, and then we'll test you even more. But know that a lot of times when we act out of anger and we yell and we scream and fight and push you away verbally, like I did with the staff in the group home, I was testing them to see if they would stay or run away and not come back or get rid of me. That was my kind of sick, perverted way of trying to build trust in them. And once I found out that they kept coming back and nothing I was doing was affecting them, it allowed me to start to lower my guard just a little bit and know that these people are for real. They genuinely do care. And it allowed me to start opening up to them just a little bit, which is what I needed. And that once I graduated that program, I was a different kid. I wasn't completely healed. I still had mental health issues. I still had anger issues, but it allowed me to start on the path to becoming a better person. And I still keep in contact, I think, with 2 of them. To this day, I still keep in contact with these people because they were a huge impact in what allowed me to change. So again, look for the smallest things in these kids that are positive. Know that you're not going to change them overnight. And know that the more they push, you have to stay consistent as hard as it is. You have to still keep coming back, not for more punishment, but keep coming back. Okay.
Jessie, can I interrupt you for just 1 second?
Sure.
I'm so sorry. I don't think I've asked this question in our past conversations, even though I know this part of your story, but did you believe that the difference in letting your guard down, okay, I'm not phrasing that properly. What was the difference in letting your guard down and learning to trust the people that kept coming back when it was a staff member versus it being your adoptive parents who kept coming back for many years? So is it because you knew that they weren't going to be permanent in your life? Is it because you knew that it wasn't love, it was more just on your level? I'm just trying to understand, because
Sure.
obviously I believe that the Hogsetts spent years proving that they were there, right?
Right.
I'm just trying to separate from the reactive attachment disorder that you showed in the home to the
Sure.
testing these stranger/staff members, which are two different things, you know, like, because
Right.
that's an actual test. Like, do you actually give a crap about me, staff member? And them taking the time to get, you know, through to you, and the patience to get through to you. I'm just trying to understand and see if maybe in your head, the wiring of your brain, if the difference was the fact that they were staff members and not people who were trying to be your parents.
No, great question, Katie. Thank you for bringing that up. So
Well, I am Katie Rose.
you are.
Just
Um,
kidding.
so the answer to that question is you have parents and then you have other people. Parents, you're expected to have that emotional connection. Parents always want to know, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What's bothering you? Tell me everything. The staff members didn't do that. I didn't feel I had to share my deepest, darkest secrets with the staff members. They never, you know, wanted to come up and hug me. They never wanted to give me a kiss like my parents did. They never wanted that close connection as parents and kids normally have. So I felt more comfortable in talking to the staff members because A, I knew I wasn't going home with them. I knew I wasn't going to be a family with them. B,
You didn't have a parent relationship.
I didn't have a parent relationship with them. I knew I wasn't expected to divulge my deepest, darkest secrets to them.
Well, you didn't have chores.
And C, I knew they wouldn't have parental expectations of me like my parents would. Okay. So, and with these kids, to your point, Katie, it's so much easier for these kids to talk to complete strangers than it is to talk to people that are close to them.
Because there's no expectations.
There's no expectations, right? And these kids can be whoever they want around strangers versus
Can't hide yourself.
around your parents. You know?
When I'm really, thank you for answering that question. And I'm not going to do a lot of interrupting into everybody else. We will have a question and answer period. So feel free to either write the questions in the chat and we'll get to them, or we'll do hand raises if anybody wants to verbally ask their question in a little bit. But I have a lot of parents in attached families that feel like that sending their child to a PRTF would just be showing them that they gave up on them. Whereas I feel completely differently.
Right.
I grew so much closer to both of my children and actually gained their trust through them being in the PRTF, because I was no longer the person responsible for their rules, their consequences, their this, their that. So I personally, I changed the way the first PRTF was like we flunked. It was bad.
The roles flipped.
Right. And I didn't know what I was doing yet. Like I was totally
testing waters.
yeah, I was so ignorant, it wasn't even funny. But then the last time that each of my children went to a PRTF, I said, I'm going to handle this completely differently.
You had a different mindset.
Right. The PRTF is there for their rules, their regulations, all of that. And I'm there to just get to know them, be on their level, not push them or force them into anything on any one of our, visits or phone calls. And
it gave a new perspective to your relationship. Yeah.
Over time, trust began to form. Mm-hmm. Over time. So I always tell my families, like, no, I actually experienced it differently.
The good part of it, yeah.
Right. So when I did finally say, no, it's time for a PRTF, I was able to that wasn't my children seeing me giving up on them. No. That was them seeing that I would literally move heaven and earth to help them heal. Yes. But I wasn't going anywhere once they went to PRTF. Right. I was going to be at every visit, every phone call, there you go. Everything.
You showed up for them. You put them there, and you showed up. Yeah.
I just wanted, and I'm glad you clarified that, Jessie, because I just don't want anybody watching to hear it and be confused by, because you tested the staff members and then go back to well, isn't that the same as testing the parents? Yeah. What happened in your family home was reactive attachment disorder.
Yep.
What happened with the staff was less pressure on the child because you knew you didn't have to show affection.
Right. Yes.
Right.
I'm speaking that correctly, 100%. Right?
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I'm going to back out. I'm sorry to everybody for my interruption. And
but that's because when you're going through the moments of talking, you need to be able to go, okay, I want to introduce before you forget. And because we're on that topic.
Right.
Awesome. And everybody else, please just write your questions in the chat.
They can even write it on a piece of paper. Write it on a piece of paper. Keep your pen and paper handy. Write it down. And at the end, we will answer all the questions. We'll
definitely get to them all. Thank you. Thank you, Jessie. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I want to go over kind of a couple more things, and I have to go use the restroom. I'll let my wife take over for a little bit. So getting out of the group home, I actually went down to stay with my sister who had gone into a different foster family. Her name is Julie. Went down to stay with her down in the LA area. Ended up moving back up to Turlock. But the cool thing about it was when I got out of the group home and I went to go stay with my sister, I found out that I had another sister who was a fraternal twin of Julie.
13. She was 13 at the time, right? Or 14.
Well, let's see. I was 16, so they had just turned 18.
Because you went to
14.
Disneyland.
I'm thinking timeline. Anyway, my memory sucks. But point is, I was the youngest one. I found out I had another sister. We all met up, went to Disneyland together.
First time meeting.
First time meeting each other, which I thought was really, really cool because I thought it was just Julie and myself. So it was really kind of a neat experience to know I had other family members out there.
You had a sister.
And another sister. I ended up moving to Turlock with my other sister, Jennifer, when I was about 16 years old, moving there.
Leaving from the group home.
Once, from
graduated.
LA,
Graduated.
Right.
He graduated from the group home. He did the program like he was supposed to do.
Right, we talked about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we graduated from that, ended up moving up to Turlock with my other sister. Now, this is where things kind of get a little interesting because at 16, I was going to high school. I had started working at a grocery store to earn some extra income at the time.
Is that what
what's
you're
that?
going into?
Yeah. So
do you want to use the restroom before you get into
No. I'm not going to get into that yet.
Okay.
But when I was 16, I got a phone call from my biological mother. One I hadn't talked to in
Since you were a
years,
kid.
since I was a kid.
Small child.
Yeah, a small child. Got
How'd
a
she
phone
find
call.
you?
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Oh.
I got a phone call out of the blue one night around Christmas time from my biological mother.
Drunken night, probably.
She was drunk.
Hi, Jessie.
She was drunk, whatnot. Said, I got your number. I wanted to see how you were doing. I had moved on already. I had come to terms with she wasn't coming back. I had made a ton of progress. Okay. And come to find out, my parents, she had called them. They had given her the number
Where you were at.
where I was staying at without telling me. That set me back, once I got off the phone with her, that set me back about 6 months in progress. But because of the tools I learned in the group home on how to control my anger and the progress that I've made, I was upset, I was hurt. But going from a child who had explosive anger till now, I didn't let it affect me as much. And I knew that I was on the path to positive recovery. Once I was able to deal with that situation, I knew that I had potential. I knew that I had a possible bright future ahead of me, learning how to deal with this stuff. So about age 17, working at the grocery store, met a girl who would come into the grocery store.
Go ahead.
And we started dating and whatnot. I was 17, she was 16 at the time. And once I turned 18, I was told I couldn't see her anymore by her family because now I was an adult, she was a child, underage, whatever. And again, my mind, nobody was going to tell me what to do. And I kind of rebelled and ended up once, getting a place on my own. So I had moved out on my own at age 18 and, just so I can continue seeing this person. I graduated from high school with a 3.6 GPA. I planned on going to college. I never went to college because I ended up getting this girl pregnant. At 16, again, I'm 18. Now I'm freaking out because I'm thinking I'm going to jail for statutory rape and her family's going to have me arrested and whatnot. But they didn't. They saw that I was working and doing the best I could for her and for the upcoming baby. And they were actually pretty well supportive of the whole thing. And now I knew that now I have a child on the way. I really have to get my stuff together. And I vowed that I would never let my children go through what I did as a kid. I still, again, I was young. I didn't understand what raising a child meant. I just knew I was going to give it, my best shot, best opportunity. I called my parents. I told them. They were extremely disappointed, saying, we shouldn't have a child out of wedlock. They urged us to get married. I wasn't going to get married just because we were having a kid together. I wanted to do it for the right reasons. So long story short, she ended up coming to stay with me in the apartment in Turlock. Her dad, who was in jail at the time, got out of jail, told him he can come stay with us. He had some drug issues. That's what he was in jail for. Ended up coming stay with us. And I'm kind of going fast through this part because there's more important information I want to talk about now. But anyway, he come to stay with us. I found more drugs in the apartment, so I kicked him out. Yeah. I said, there's no way you're going to have that with my, child being into this apartment. So I ended up kicking him out. He had moved. And then with the stress of being, young, working two jobs, having bills, a child, and still
being 18,
still immature. The girl and I would argue a lot, get into verbal altercations. I was physical with her a few times. I'm not proud of that at all. No excuse for it, but I was. So her dad had come back down and we agreed that she was going to go with him for a couple of weeks just to give us some time to reflect and give us some time apart to try to get you know, feelings under control and just have a little mini vacation from each other, try to let the tension die down. My son was born at this time already. And so she went up there.
6 months?
Yeah, I think it was about 6 months old. She had gone up there, and I waited a couple of days. I didn't want to bug her or try to get a hold of him. So after a couple of days, I called after not hearing from her. She ended up saying that she was not coming back at all, which absolutely devastated me.
You tore up the apartment.
Oh,
Yeah.
I redecorated the inside of the apartment. I let my anger get the better of me. And I was put in such a bad depression, I ended up overdosing on my anti-seizure medication, which I was on for epilepsy, Tegretol. Ended up in the hospital in a coma, and just really, really bad stuff, which I don't like to talk about a lot because it hurts too bad. And then from getting out of the hospital, I ended up going to a halfway house for kids from 18 to 21 with mental health issues through a program called Visions, Transitional Housing. They helped with schooling, they helped with paying bills, they helped kind of with therapy, getting you back on your feet. Stayed in an apartment, had a job. I was working as a security guard, as a supervisor for a security company. Why am I telling you all this? Because I'm going to step out here in a minute, and this transitions to how I met my wonderful wife. And people always say, you know, how with reactive attachment disorder and all these mental health issues, are you able to have a relationship, let alone a relationship that's already lasted 21 years? Okay. So that's what I'm going to let my wife talk about here for a little bit. So I ended up meeting her. I was her supervisor at the security company. And we ended up talking. I felt embarrassed that I had asked her if she wanted to go for breakfast in the morning, but she had to pick me up, which was really embarrassing for a guy, you know, but I didn't have a car. I didn't have my driver's license.
I was like, are you a scrub? Because that TLC song. And you're like, no, I have epilepsy. And
I had epilepsy, state of
get
California.
A driver's license.
Yeah, California says you can't get a license if you have, you know, a seizure disorder. So that's why I didn't have my license or a car, but she understood that, picked me up. Went to breakfast in the morning, talked, kind of hit it off, had another date later on.
That night?
That night.
That was our first date.
Yeah.
And then at 2 a.m, I asked if you wanted a girlfriend. And
no, we were laying on the couch at our place.
I was laying on your lap.
She was laying on my lap, and she wanted to know if I had a girlfriend. I said no. And
you said if I had a girlfriend, I wouldn't be here with
right.
you.
And she goes, well, you want a girlfriend? I'm like, sure. She goes, can I be your girlfriend? I'm like, okay.
I'm so corny, you guys. I'm like the corniest person you'll ever meet.
But she had no idea at the time what my past history was. She had no idea on what our future was going to be. Heck, we didn't even think.
I was 18.
Yeah, 18, 19. At that point in time, we didn't.
I was 18, you were 20.
Whatever.
You had just
and we
20.
didn't think that we would be together. You know, at that point, it was just a relationship thing. And
I remember going home that night and telling my mom, oh my gosh, Mom, I met the most greatest guy ever. He's really tall. He's really sweet. And yeah. And then like within a week, I found out he had a child. He was not in the child's life. He had baby mama drama. Well, not really, but I remember sitting on my mom's bed going, oh my gosh, Mom, this guy has so much stuff. I don't know if I can do it.
Before we get into that, because I'm going to step out.
Okay.
We started dating. And like she said, she found out within about a week of all the issues that were going on. And I didn't know if she was going to stay or not. But there was you know, like kids have honeymoon phases when they're in a group home, or there's honeymoon phases when you're,
honeymoon phase too.
You know, whatever. But we went through a honeymoon phase in our relationship where, you know, everything was
great.
I was affectionate. I was sweet. I was talkative about her. Opened up to her. Not about everything. You know, not deeper stuff, but definitely showed interest in her. And that kind of started going downhill.
Within a month, you got me a promise ring.
Yeah, within a month, got our promise ring.
2 weeks. It was 2 weeks after we were together.
I ended up having surgery on my head to remove my shunt out of my head from my hydrocephalus.
Woke up a totally different person.
And woke up a totally different person. And I think that's, you know, kind of where it started. But I'll let her talk about that, about, you know, what she felt when she started seeing the behaviors and issues that were going on with me and questioning whether she was
Well, yeah,
meant
because
to
that's
be.
when you took pills,
or
and it was
not.
before 4th of July. Like
Yeah.
we became boyfriend and girlfriend March 25th, and June is when April is when you saw, you went up to Oregon to go see Donovan.
Right.
And then you came back. It was like the end of April because I was in Jersey for Nancy's christening.
Right.
And then
Well,
in May,
I'm going to step out.
Okay.
I really want her to talk to you guys because, again, the questions that I see a lot from families are, if my kids grow up, when they grow up, are they going to be successful? Can they have relationships? Or are they going to be like this the rest of their life and not have good, solid relationships with people? So without further ado, I'm going to have Brenda take over, kind of talk from her perspective, and I'll be back in a little bit.
Okay. Perfect. All right. See you in a minute. Love you.
Love you.
Okay, guys. So, I first got with Jessie and I was young. I was 18. And, my life, I know with Jessie having reactive attachment disorder, I also came from a family that had, like, my mom and dad were married for 30 years. My dad asked my mom for a divorce when I was 13 years old and I was going into 7th grade. So I have my own trauma. I had, my dad used to spank us and beat us and spankings, discipline. But I had my own baggage that I had come into. I was number 4 out of 5 children. So in a nutshell, just a little backstory about my life. Again, April of 2015, I was diagnosed bipolar 1, PTSD, and a whole bunch of other stuff, anxiety and all that. And I've had that my whole life without realizing that's what I had. I also have chemical imbalances. So, but I had mom and dad, married, 5 children in the home. I had a very happy childhood. So I consider myself lucky, blessed, all that good stuff. I don't feel like I had a bad life at all. So I meet Jessie, and at this time when I met him, like, I wanted a family, I wanted babies, I wanted what I wanted. And meeting him, he was just like a knight in shining armor. Like, he was literally the Prince Charming on the white horse. He was sweet, he was caring, he was compassionate. Like, he showed me affection. Like, he'd pick my feet up and put them on his lap and rub my feet. And that was like the first couple of months that we were together. He was very affectionate. And then he went in for surgery and had the shunt tube taken out because the shunt split in several places and it ended up with infection. So his neurologist, the neurosurgeon, just took it all out, left the catheter in. But it's not a joke, but I would joke about, like, dude, they messed with your brain. They did something, because he came out a totally different person. And I don't want to ramble. So if you feel like I'm rambling, I tend to talk really fast, especially when I'm nervous. So I apologize ahead of time. But in a nutshell.
Don't be nervous. You're doing great.
Thank you. So I had my own stuff growing up. And, no one goes through life unscathed. We all have something, okay? Because our parents aren't perfect. Our families aren't perfect. So again, 18, meeting this guy, and potentially this is somebody I can marry. I knew right away, I'm going to marry him. I don't know what it was in me that made me think that. I just literally felt like this is my person. And 2 weeks after being together, he got me a promise ring. And we planned to get married. And then in April, so within the end of April of 2000, we got together March 25th and like April 25th, like we're a month in our relationship. I go to New Jersey for my niece's christening, and I kept trying to call him and he wasn't answering. And then I asked his roommate, where's Jessie? Oh, he went to Oregon to go see Donovan, his son. Wait, what? He didn't tell me. He didn't say anything. So then I have her number. Like, I have a family member's number. And I'm like, oh, hi, I'm looking for so-and-so. This is her friend from high school. And I know she moved to Oregon, but I lost her number. They gave it to me. You know, like my detective work was like, I'm on point. I'm going to hunt him down. I'm going to find him. And I did. I called the phone number and he answered it. What are you doing in Oregon? And he's like, he goes, Brenda, I'm here. I see my son and I don't think I can leave him. Okay. And I was like, do you want your ring from you want your class ring? You want your this? I was like, I'm in New Jersey and I can't deal with this right now. Like literally he broke up with me on the phone, but I can't compete with his son. You know what I mean? Like, okay, within good reason, he's in Oregon and visiting his son and he's staying there. I understood, but I was hurt for me, but happy for him. And that was genuine. It was sincere because I knew the month that we shared, it was phenomenal. And I remember hearing what might have been. It came on the radio in my car and I'm bawling my eyes out driving down the freeway. I probably should have pulled over, but I was bawling my eyes out what might have been because he's in Oregon and I'm here and he's with his ex and he's with his son. And I was crushed. And I know most people are like, you were only with him for a month. But I literally had such a quick, with me, I give it everything. I don't know how to love a little bit. I don't know how to do anything. I was like, I've always been vulnerable. I've always been raw. I've always been open. That's just me. That's how I've always been. And that's why I get hurt easily. But that doesn't stop me from still loving. I still love and I'm still compassionate and I still have empathy and I have all these things because that's just who I am. That's how my mom and dad raised me. So I didn't know how to turn it off like he did, you know. So at that point, we're not together. And I go to his apartment to get his stuff to, you know, well, I'm still in New Jersey. And all I could think of was going home, coming to California. You know, like I said, that was my niece's christening, and I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. I was only there for 1 because I got on the first flight home. I worked at that time, and I paid like $600 extra to change my flight to come home early. I knew I needed to do something. I didn't know what, but I knew I couldn't let this guy out of my life. I knew that we were going to have a life together, and I can't tell you how I knew that. Sorry, guys. I can't tell you how I knew it, but I just knew I needed to be with him. God was letting me know, don't give up. This is just the beginning. And that's kind of scary because I just felt with every part of me, no, this is the man I'm supposed to marry. This isn't supposed to happen this way. And I just remember praying, and I actually met this Marine coming back. We sat next to each other, and I just remember talking to this guy about what was going on. I'm like, I'm going home because my boyfriend just broke up with me. And I just opened up to this stranger, and we had such a great conversation. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to do everything I can in my power to get him back. So anyway, I get home, I called him, and then she answered. Now, you know, Natalie answered the phone, and I hung up because I was nervous. I was scared. Oops. And then he called me back, and he's like, listen, she's in the other room, and I can't talk, but I'm going to come home. He's like, I just told her that so I could come see my son. And I was like, wait a minute. What? What are you talking about? So the lying, she had told him, if you're not with me, you're not going to see your son. So he's like, you know what? I just went with it. I went along with it. Okay, I'm going to come and be with you. And I know that was wrong. He shouldn't have done it. But at that time, all he could think about was being with his son. So I understood. And even then, I was always like, okay, you're with your son. He's not I'm not going to compete with that. You're not picking your son over me. That's not what this is about. I was just really sad because I knew the potential. I knew we could have had something amazing. I didn't know what, but something, our life was going to be great because I felt it in my heart. You know, I felt it in every part of me. This was the man I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with. This is not how it's supposed to be. I can't tell you how strong it was. And I just knew, like, no, our story does not end here. It's just going to start. We had a great story, and we were going to have a great story to tell. I get it. So anyway, I get home, and then she walks into the bedroom where he's talking, and all heck broke loose because she heard him saying, I'm not with her. We're not going to be together. I love you. I want to be with you. He's like, I just told her what I needed to tell her to see my son. And I felt so bad that he did that to her. But I was happy that he was coming home. He was coming home to me. I can't tell you. I know it sounds messed up, but I knew that this was the man of I knew that this was going to be my husband. So she kicks him out of the apartment. She tells him, get out of my house. Kicks him out. And he calls me from a payphone in Oregon in a laundromat. Babe, I'm in a laundromat. It's dry. It's soaking wet. It's downpouring. And I said, okay, I'm going to call her. No, don't call her. I go, no, woman to woman, I'm going to call her. And I said, now at this time, I'm 18 and I'm years beyond my age. Okay, at 18, I was like 30. I was more matured for my age. And I said, Natalie, that's the father of your son. Do you really want the father of your son to be in a laundromat outside downpouring? I said, you knew he was coming up and he was going to come back. Like, she goes, so we're talking, and I can't remember verbatim the conversation. She goes, okay, well, you tell him to come back and he can sleep on my couch. I don't even want to look at him. Okay, at least she agreed to have him come back in the house. So that whole thing happened, and there's a lot to it, but I don't want to go, that's not even what this is about. We're not, it's part of what he went through, what we went through in our relationship, but he knew that, I was upset with him, but he could trust me. So that's where this all is going to, is he lied and he did something wrong, but I didn't chastise him. I didn't go, okay, now I'm breaking up with you. You know what I mean? Like, that was one of the major things. And that's why it's important, because it's part of our story. It's part of where he started opening up more and more to me, because he left me to go see his son and he was with her. And I was still going, okay, well, let's just get you back home and go from there. So he's like, holy smokes, she's not cursing at me. She's not telling me I'm leaving you. Like, he was just like, wow, this woman is different. She is special about me, So he comes home, he gets off the bus, and we get, I'm just so happy that he's home and that he decided to come back. So we're together, and that was that. And then in June, so that was May, end of April, beginning of May. And then in June of that year, he had the surgery to take the shunt tube out. And that's when he woke up a different person. He was very angry. He was agitated, all these things. And it was towards me. And I remember asking the doctor, what's going on? Because this isn't who he is. And that was June 21st, 2000 was when he had his surgery. And then the week of 4th of July, he tried to commit suicide. And because his ex had brought his son back the beginning of June for a visit, and she went back up to Oregon. It was just a lot of back and forth stuff with her. And her going, well, if you're not with me, you're not going to see him, which I was totally upset about. And I never met his son, because she's like, I don't want that woman around. You're not going to see him if that woman's there. So, okay, I'm not going to argue with that, because at the end of the day, it's about Jessie and his son. So I didn't take things personal. I just was like, whatever. She's going to be immature. Let her be what she is. I don't care at this point. I'm just glad that you get to see your son. Well, then she went back up to Oregon, took his son. And even though he had me, he still felt all these things. So, and then he tried to commit suicide. He was at the hospital, and then they put him in SBHC, Stanislaus Behavioral Health. And he was in there for 2 weeks. So he was at SBHC for 2 weeks over the 4th of July week of 2000. So April, May, June. So the first 3 months of our relationship, the first month was the honeymoon phase. The next month was dealing with baby mama drama. And then the third month was him trying to commit suicide and being in a behavioral place for 2 weeks. That's when I went home to my mom and I just go, I don't think I'm built to handle this. I don't think I can handle this. I was like, but if I give up on him, I feel like I'm not supposed to give up on him. And I don't know why, but something, I can't give up on him. And my mom is a Christian. My mom would always lay in bed and we'd always pray. And she'd always say, okay, who are we going to pray for tonight? Who do you think? And I mean, I was like 3. My sister was 3 and I was 6. So that was my life. But we didn't go to church. We weren't churchgoers. We didn't go. I was not raised in the church. My mom was pretty much the church. We learned about religion through my mom. But I just remember talking to her and going, I don't think I can handle this guy. I don't think I can handle everything that he's got going on. And she goes, well, honey, did you stop to think that maybe God put you in his life to help Jessie? You know, we didn't know the full story. We didn't know everything. We just knew it was something, and I just couldn't get through to him. Something, and I couldn't get through. So, and it took me a long time. But right then and there, July 4th week, I almost left him. I almost said, this is too much. I need to party. I need to enjoy my life. I'm only 18 years old. This guy's got way too much stuff. But I prayed about it. And I chose to stay with him. I chose to work things out. I chose to, and it wasn't even, he was like, I'm pretty sure. Okay, are you back, babe? Okay, I want you to come back, please. And thank you. Because I know at that time, and this is very important because this was a make or break it. This was at the time when I'm like, okay, I'm either going to leave this guy or I'm going to stick it out. But do you remember when you were in SBHC and I'd come and see you and stuff? Do you remember, like, dude, is she going to leave me? Did you ever worry about that?
Well, yeah, of course I did, because, you know, all through my life, people would come and go and left and toss me to the side. And all we want is, with these kids, is stability. We want to know that people aren't going to give up on us and leave us all the time when stuff's going bad. We don't want to feel like a piece of trash that's just been discarded when people are done, you know, when people are just through with us. And we want to know that people genuinely do care. And yeah, I came with a lot of problems when we first got together. And I was open. I wasn't a Christian at the time, you know, and I don't push Christianity on anybody. That's just my personal, you know, thing. But I kept thinking, you know, well, here's another one that's going to leave, you know, there's no hope. And I'm going to go through the rest of my life just disappointing people and being miserable, and people aren't going to care. When deep down inside, I wanted people to care. I wanted to be loved and cared for, and wanted people to see who I truly was on the inside. You know, I wanted to be able at some point to have this wall that I had put up to come down, because I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to feel important. I wanted to feel wanted and needed and loved. And I didn't feel any of that. And so when I got with my wife, you know, I was very scared and very nervous that once she found out all the stuff I came with, she would just run the opposite direction, and that would be the rest of my life. And she didn't. You know, and she's a true angel and a saint, because she didn't give up on me, and she saw my potential and who I could become. And we had our ups and downs in our relationship. Every relationship has ups and downs, and it got really bad at times. It got really bad. And I remember when we got married, June 21st of 2003, one of the happiest days of my life that I will never forget. It was perfect. But that first year was the hardest year. I kept throwing rings down the hallway. I kept, you know,
me,
just
like emotionally.
I was mean, emotionally mean towards her. You know,
Tell me you didn't want me to go.
I was mean, and it was all the anger and hurt that had
From everybody
in my life, and all the people that I felt wronged me. And that's unfortunately with these kids and adults who have, you know, reactive attachment disorder, which later on becomes borderline personality disorder in some. We lash out at those closest to us. It's not right, but we do, because we feel comfortable doing that. It's sick, I know.
Sucks for us.
It
You know, it
does.
sucks for the punching bag.
But
And I'm not putting hands. I'm saying
No.
like the verbal attack, the emotional attack. Like I just felt some days he just wanted to hurt me. You wanted me to feel how you felt.
wanted her to feel the years and pain and hurt that
What
I
everybody
went
else
through.
did to you.
And I verbally unloaded on her. And I was
Not nice.
not nice, you know.
It hurt my feelings.
And I didn't have empathy. I didn't have compassion. I didn't have any of that. Why did I get married in the first place? You know, that was a question that people always asked. How is it you got married? Why did you get married then? If you still struggled with all that, because inside I wanted to be with somebody. I wanted somebody to love me. I wanted somebody.
No, you
to care
wanted
for
me to love you. You wanted me. It wasn't about somebody. It was me. You felt you could trust me. You were
No.
starting to.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
You know, and like my wife said, as I started to trust her, the crap that I put her through, the emotional garbage I put her through, she didn't leave. And I started to trust her. And I started to see that she's going to stay and stick around. And that allowed me to start opening up just a little bit more to her. That wall wasn't completely down. It was still up.
It wasn't overnight like that, guys. It wasn't like, he's all trusted me.
You know, it wasn't like that. And it took many years, you know.
19 years.
19 years for that wall to finally come completely down.
Crumble.
And
kicking it.
You know, March of 2019, March 5th, 2019, I went to bed without empathy, without compassion, without anything. March 6th of 2019, I woke up to the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life, to instantly feeling empathy and compassion and concern and feeling like the biggest piece of crap in the whole world for putting her through what I put her through for the last 19 years up to that point. Overnight, I had developed empathy. Overnight, I had developed compassion and sorrow, and my heart hurt. And that's something I'd never felt before, you know. And come to find out, she had been praying and praying and praying for me, you know. And whether you believe or not,
I literally said, Lord, wake him up.
You know, it changed. It changed me overnight, literally. And from 2019 till now, our relationship is the best it's ever been.
Amen.
She knows all my secrets. She knows everything about me. And I can honestly say I'm not afraid to cry in front of her. I'm not afraid to tell her how I'm feeling or show my emotions. I don't put her through the hell that I put her through for the last 19 years. I put her up on a pedestal. She deserves the world. And
that's because I understood, honey. I had understanding.
She understood. She never left. She understood, and she saw my potential on what I could be and what I could become.
Lord, let me see him through your eyes.
You know?
That was my prayer. I would say, Lord, let me, give me eyes that see him through your eyes. And the times that I'd be so mad because he wouldn't do what I wanted him to do, I would still, navigating through everything, because I'm just trying to get fast forward, because we always talk about your past. We
Right.
always talk about the
Right.
past. And the future is so bright. The future is so amazing. And the fact that you help these families and help the kids, and I'm just totally blown away at the calling that you have on your life to help others, and us being with each other to do it together.
That's it. We are doing
That's
it
it.
together. You know, we're a team. We definitely have our hearts in the right place. And like my wife said, it's, you know, for the longest time, I didn't know what I was supposed to do in this world. I didn't know what my calling was or anything like that. And I had finished writing my first book, which came out in 2011. I'm in the process of writing a second one where the first one stopped.
Picking up on
I'm going to interrupt you again, Jesse.
ahead,
When can
Kate.
we expect that? We're so excited about it.
You know, Katie, one thing about me is I procrastinate.
No, I've never heard of that ever. in
not
my
him.
life. Come on, Jesse. Not just with you, but come on.
He has high standards, Katie. He has high pressure. The first book was, you know what? He felt he needed to write it, and he did. And he's a perfectionist. Well, he hasn't always been a perfectionist, but this is something that he feels strongly on his heart that he needs to do, and he needs to do it right. He needs to make sure he doesn't leave things.
Well, we are very much looking forward to it,
It's
Jesse.
overwhelming for him. Like in 2019, he spent 3 months writing. And I'm not kidding you. He went like this and then started rewriting again. He had the book almost done. And then he started rewriting because it wasn't good enough. It didn't depict what he wanted. Like, no, this is wrong. I can't do, so yeah, he's very hard on himself.
Well, we are definitely looking forward to it, Jesse.
So we can only hope that his second book will do justice. That's all.
So, to wrap this up, and there's so much more we could talk about, but, to wrap this up, we've come a long way. My wife is an angel. She's stuck by when any other woman and herself could have walked away. And
as a mother, I can say to you, it's, my love for my children is unconditional, and I'll never, ever, ever walk away from them.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I'd say the same about just any partner. So 19 years, Brenda.
Yeah. Well,
God
we've been
bless
together
you.
21, but 19 years before he had his awakening.
Right.
Whatever people want to call it, but
right. 19 years of putting up with that before he even experienced compassion and empathy and
throughout
remorse.
the years, though, I will tell you, many times I had my suitcase packed. Many times I'd be in the moment putting my crap together, and then I'd get to the door and I would feel, don't go.
Right.
And I would
I'd
be at my wit's end. I'm like, I can't take this. I felt like I was going crazy. I felt something was wrong with me. What, you know what I mean? Like, so that's why I'm like, when I tell these parents, you feel like something's wrong with you. So I'm saying it from a partner's perspective, not a parent's perspective. So I can only imagine,
right,
that connection, parent, spouse, whatever. You literally feel, it's not even an obligation, but you feel this thing that ties you, and we're supposed to do all these things. Anyway, I didn't leave, but I was ready to. And I'd go and stay at my friend's house. I left him for a few days, and I went and slept at my friend's house and going to go sleep on her couch. And then I'd go home. But I never left him.
Left. Right. Yeah, you took some space.
I never filed separation. I never filed divorce.
Right. No,
but I wanted to.
We call it respite as parents. So let's say you took some respite from the situation.
There you go.
Okay. I would like to just ask a couple of questions about Jesse as a father, and then I'm going to open it up to asking questions
Well,
that
a
are there.
couple more things real quick, Katie, before we get to
Please.
here. My wife and I are actually, we started an Instagram page together where we're going to be doing live presentations and posts to help
Lives
other
and podcasts.
podcasts.
Yeah.
Thank you. To help other families.
I'm going to definitely beg you guys to allow that to feed into the Attached Families website.
Yes,
I
we'd be glad to
believe I
collaborate.
This is
Yes,
it.
I believe I actually liked
Backwards,
you guys yesterday, if I'm correct.
Is that, can you
Broke
read
into
that?
blessings. I'm pretty sure I liked you guys yesterday.
Yeah.
I think we're already following you.
Yeah,
But,
Broken to Blessings on Instagram is mine and his together. So
I love it. I love
then
it. And we're
Also-
going. Go ahead.
Also, what we're going to be doing besides writing the second book is I'm going to be starting, I meet with a couple other people as well to start like a mentoring thing for kids and teens who have reactive attachment
I
disorder,
love it.
families who are struggling with these kids, so we can do one-on-one
Yes.
phone calls, Skype sessions, Zoom meetings, to.
Oh my goodness. I'm
Spend time
so
with these guys.
thrilled.
Because there's
Jesse-
so much to talk about, just not enough time,
Right. But as you know, how I personally, Katie Rose, and Attached Families, we love you both so much. And I hope
we
you know
love
that and
you.
you feel
When
that.
you're like, oh, where's your wife at? I'm like, oh, I love Katie. I love all of you people. I love everybody. I'm just letting you all know I'm sending you good, positive vibes. And I love all of you very much. That's not
Thank
a
you.
hello. And this is just the beginning. This is just the
Thank you. Well, I want you to know that Attached Families completely, it supports both of you in these endeavors, and we would be thrilled to advertise it on all of our social media and our website, because honestly, you guys have just given back so much to all of our families, and we consider you both family.
From our heart. It's from my heart. It's from his heart.
I know it is. I know it is.
I'll do, you know what I mean? Like we're great, equally yoked and iron sharpening iron, and just I don't have a problem being emotional. Like I tend to be over emotional, and I told my husband, you had a wall to protect yourself. I never had a wall. I don't know what that is. So
I feel the same way.
open. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
Open, and I'm like, I'm open for attacks, but I'm also protected. So I don't know what it's like to put up a wall to protect myself, or to have I'm very transparent.
Absolutely.
I don't know how to fake it. I don't know how to be other than what I am. That's all.
Me either. Yes. So no, I'm thrilled about this future endeavor, and I cannot wait to see how it evolves.
Oh yes, how it all transpires, and seeing it all come together. And I told him he started Patches years ago. He wanted to get all this going back then, and I said, honey, it's timing, okay? You are being prepared. You're being seasoned to go on the barbecue, okay? You're being seasoned. And no, each step, you're not failing. Each step is the step to go to be where you're needing to be. Don't think of it as, yes, he sees himself as a procrastinator, but I'm like, everything is in the right timing, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Come on,
Okay, we're going to start some questions.
Go ahead. You said you had a couple of questions.
And anybody who wants to raise their hand can do so, but I'm going to go to the chat
Bring on
first.
the questions. I love questions.
Jesse, actually, this was I had the first question and I chatted it out. Have the Hogsetts ever watched one of your presentations?
Say it one more time. I couldn't hear you.
Have the Hogsetts, your parents, ever watched one of your presentations?
No.
No. Okay, I was curious.
Well, if they have, they've never said anything.
Yeah, no.
I'm pretty sure we would have heard something.
Okay. From Mrs. Thompson, this is going back to when you were in the facility for 2 years. This is the long-term therapy families need, not the magic 6 months insurance says, which leads to continuous back and forth. Home, rinse, repeat with no progress. We couldn't agree more. Allison says, thank you, Jessie. We took in 3 older siblings. Their bio mom passed away due to addiction prior to them coming to live with us. They were in various separate homes many times. We got them directly from another abusive family home. The siblings do not do well together and don't want to be together. How about that? How do you think about that difference that the siblings trigger each other? That's, trauma bonded is a real thing, and some siblings do not do well together. Did you have any trauma bonding with either of your sisters?
What was that, Katie?
Did you personally have any trauma bonding with either of your sisters? Did they trigger you?
My sister Julie, no. My sister Jennifer, I guess the only trigger, because we never grew up with each other, we really didn't know each other very well. So things she would do would make me kind of go, huh? And I think the real trigger was I tried to have a bond with her, but she wasn't receptive to that because, like I said, we just never grew up with each other. And
how do you miss something you'd never had?
How do you miss something? Exactly. How do you miss something you never had? I've tried to have a bond with her, but she has her own little bubble of stuff that's going on, and so that's about the only thing.
Okay, thank you. And yes, just to get back to you, Allison, yes, trauma bonded is a real thing, and there are some siblings that definitely don't belong together. If they're already adopted, it just really is something that
they're
really
in different stages of their they're in different stages. One could be in a home for a year and one could be, you know what I mean? Like they're in different households. So if they're in different households, you don't know how one household manages things to another. So there's that.
Absolutely. The next question is from Angela. First of all, she says, thank you so much for speaking to us. She wonders what your relationship is with your adopted parents is like now, and when you went to live with your biological siblings, how did they deal? This is a huge concern for their son's future. So what did your parents, how did they feel when you went to live with your sisters, and what's your relationship like with them now?
Okay, so my adoptive parents, I know I probably didn't mention this, but when I was in the group home, I got a phone call from them, and towards the end of when I graduated the group home, I had gotten a phone call with them, and I told them, hey, I'm doing really good. I have straight A's in school. I've passed the program. I'm a completely different kid. I can't wait to come home to mend whatever relationship we didn't have. I was generally excited. I was a different person.
Genuinely, yeah.
Well, their response was, we still can't trust you. We don't want you back at home. So that being said, as far as me going to stay with my other siblings,
you didn't have a choice.
They didn't. Okay.
It didn't bother them. As far as my relationship with my parents now, they still see me as the 5, 6, 7-year-old trouble child who lets them down all the time. So we really have a relationship.
Some people can't move on. I don't even have Brad, and I'll be 45 in a couple of weeks. Don't tell anybody. And and my father could still think that I'm going to overflow every glass when I pour something into it. And I'm like, I haven't done that since I was 6, but okay, thank you. So some people just can't get that.
No, it's unfortunate, and all we can do is, keep praying for them, and hopefully God will put it on their heart to be able to forgive Jessie, but also forgive themselves.
Absolutely.
I think forgiving yourself is the hardest thing. I've messed up. I've asked Jessie to forgive me. I've asked God to forgive me, but the hardest part was forgiving myself. And so
100%. And Jessie,
different topic, but it's still
absolutely, because
okay. So
Jessie's part of our group. Go
Huh?
ahead, I'm sorry. Jessie, you're part of our group, and I'm sure you saw my own personal share the other day when I was like, the guilt I felt because I had just had an interaction with my son where I wasn't being I wasn't parenting therapeutically at the time because I'm not a robot and I can't do it 24 hours a day and I have feelings but then
sometimes you lose your stuff and that happens.
And I personally, but even worse for me, than not being therapeutically parenting is the amount of guilt I feel after it.
Yes.
And the fact that, like, the same advice we give to all our families, and then my families were kind enough to
apply it
give
ourselves.
back. Right. We have to show ourselves some grace.
We have great insight. We help as many as we can. And then I'm like, I gotta start living this too, man.
Right. So,
and it's not everything. There's just some things,
Right.
I really think that I'm not saying it's easier, and I don't know 100% how they feel, but I can only imagine they might feel some guilt about what they've done, right? They could have handled it differently. And maybe Jessie's a reminder of their fail, right? And maybe they have that's how they would view it,
Did they visit him?
I'm not saying they failed. They didn't, but that's what they feel. They feel they failed.
Right. No, absolutely. But do you know if they visited him while he was in there?
Baby, did they visit you in the 2 years twice?
Okay. I'm going to leave it at that.
And here's the thing. I'm not saying anything bad. On that. Because I don't understand circumstances. Sometimes parents don't have a car. Whatever.
100%. 100%.
Everybody
There's no judgment. There's no judgment.
What they do. But at the end of the day, I know he wanted them to come and they didn't.
Okay. I really need to take back what I just did because I always say no judgment, and then I literally just had a moment.
And you know what? Because at the end of the day, like you said, we all have our own specific standards, but not everybody is that way. Not everybody, like Katie, you're a person of action. You will do whatever it takes. Some people just don't have that in them, and that doesn't make them less parent or more.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It's just their circumstance and how they deal with things. And like, you will do it. And some people, it's just harder for others to do it. Okay.
Absolutely.
It's not a bad thing. And it's not a good, everything.
And like you said, all circumstances are different.
So I will wholeheartedly say that right now, everybody's way of doing things is different, but always the best that we could do. And at the end of the day, if you go, okay, today I did my best, kind of like when you're a player, whether it's basketball, if you're playing and you lose the game, did you lose it knowing you did it the best you could? Or did you go, oh, I could have done this better? And that's how I want to be. I want to live every day knowing, did I give it my all? Did I do the best I can? Because it's a personal struggle. Everyone struggles differently. And did you give it your all? And that's all you can do. That's it.
Wonderful. I'm going to pass the next.
Oh, somebody just wants to ask a question, Katie.
What?
Somebody just said, can I ask a question?
As I said, I'm going through the questions that were typed out first, and then I'm getting.
So then, if you have a question,
they muted everyone.
Write it down. Right. If you have a question, write it down on a piece of paper, and then you'll be able to ask your question verbally once we get through the written questions. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I'm getting through the written ones, and then I'll take anyone who wants to ask. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right. Next question.
Okay, baby.
The person who asked about West Virginia, you'd have to ask that inside attached families. Glad to know Jessie. Jessie is
Jessie, this is for you, dude. Come on, baby. All right.
From Kathy, my daughter has been wanting to be in contact with her bio mom since the day we met her. She was 9 when we met and adopted her. She was taken away at 2.5 years old and is now 16. I told her I would help her find her bio mom when she turns 18. Is this a bad idea? Why or why not?
Wow.
Now, really quick before you answer, those questions are on the question, like we could read those, right? Or is that just what you see?
Yeah, you can see him in the chat.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Okay, come on, let's get over. You can't see you. Sorry.
I can see me.
Okay.
Okay, so is it a good idea once she turns 18? Well, I would say it depends on her mental state at 18. So if at 18 she is functioning as a true 18-year-old young adult, then I would have a talk with her and lay out the pros and cons of doing it. If she at 18 is functioning at a 12, 13-year-old level, I would probably say no. It all depends on the circumstance. But I would definitely have a conversation with her before that and explains, look, here's the pro part of doing that. And then here's the con part of doing it and what can happen and all the issues that can come up with doing it. Think about it. Write down your thoughts on it, get back to me, and we can discuss it from there.
Emotional age has a lot to do with it, not just the numerical age. And just to add to Jessie's point, before I would advise to thing, I would personally need to know what situation the biological parent is in themselves. You know, if they're still an addict or still completely unstable or unsafe, I'm not going to bring my child into that. I might discuss with my child what I had found out when they were emotionally the age that was mature enough to understand.
Right.
I'm just adding that on. And of course, every situation will be completely different. So now I'm going to go to Mrs. Thompson, who has been raising her hand through the entire and
Mrs. Thompson.
So let me unmute
I love
her.
it.
I don't follow directions very well.
It's okay.
There you go, Mrs. Thompson. It's finally yours.
You have the floor.
Sorry. Not following directions very well.
I don't think we all do it all the time. It's okay.
My question is, I have a 17-year-old that will be 18 at the end of the year. And so without telling my whole story, we need to transition him to independent living. We've tried really hard to go from the residential treatment center, but he couldn't come straight home, and there was really no place. So we came up with a hybrid thing. But now it's time that he just can't function with me or with his dad. And so we're working with an attorney and his school and independent living and a mentor. Is there anything else that we can do to help this process that you would have appreciated at 17, helping you get to that point? Because it becomes just an emotional crisis after crisis. I spent 5.5 hours in verbal emotional abuse just last Friday, and it just continues. And so he can do everything. He's in that 17-year-old mindset. I can be by myself. Stop telling me what I should do. What are your thoughts?
Has he done any of the programs with other kids his age that talk about independent living skills at all? Do you have any of that?
He's been in for last year. He's been in kind of a day program and worked on those skills. He's in line to go to Job Corps if COVID ever decides to go away.
Yeah.
So he is in line, although every third day he threatens, I'm not going to Job Corps. You can't make me. And
Does he say why?
I think it's a fear. I mean, he won't tell me that. That's my mom hair telling me that. It's just, I think he doesn't want to, it's the unknown. And he often says, you just don't want me. You just want to throw me away. You know, those are the triggering words he said all along since adoption, right? So
Can I interject for a second? What is his, I get that he's going to be 18 at the end of the year. My oldest is going to be 18 at the end of the year as well. What's his emotional age?
I would have to say he's about 14, but he's having active sex with his girlfriend. You know, I can't stop any of these things. And so, I mean, he just leaves and does his thing.
He does what he wants to do when he wants
Does
to
what
do.
he wants to do anyway. And he's not
when he
out of
wants
the
to
house
do.
because he attacked us. He attacked us in our home when he went to residential for a year and a half. So that's over. He's gotten off probation, but it's very scary. I want you to understand that it's very scary.
Yes.
To a living situation with him.
Oh, Mrs. Thompson, I feel your pain. Trust me.
You
Jessie,
can call me Michelle. It's my teacher account, so sorry, I can't change it.
You're fine. You're fine.
May I ask your first name?
Michelle.
Michelle?
Yeah.
Okay. I will tell you right now, I will be praying for you 100%, and I will continue to pray for your son and for you and your circumstances.
Jessie.
I'm very hopeful. I managed to help him get a job in Arby's. He got an interview and a job, but it's his first job. And we have an interview for an apartment with a pastor who's willing to try.
Jessie, what might have, if anything, what might have worked for you when you were the emotional age of 14 and about to go out on your own?
Yeah, that's extremely, extremely scary because you don't know.
Yeah.
We talk, you know, we want to do what we want. We can't wait to get out on our own because of freedom. Deep down inside, we're scared to death on what's going to happen because we don't know, you know, the unknown. So I would say a number of things would have definitely helped me a lot better. And number one would be being part of a group of other kids my age who were struggling with the same thing, to know I have some kind of peer support out there. Number one. Number two, I would definitely would have liked to have a mentor outside of my family situation who maybe I could spend some time with on a weekly basis to look at, you know, what's ahead of me in the future once I get out on my own. Somebody who can take me under their wing and say, look,
mentorship.
I understand this is scary, but this is what you could have. This is the exciting stuff that awaits you in your future.
Yeah.
And somebody who would be, not saying, Michelle, that you are judgmental. That's not what I'm saying at all. But in my mind, somebody who's not family, who I know would be non-judgmental with about my fears and anxieties. And much like I had the staff in the group home who understood that, I'd want somebody outside of my family who specializes in transitioning kids out on their own.
It's not that close
to work with
your family.
That would have helped a ton. And then lastly, not to toot my own horn, but somebody such as myself who can talk, who understands, who've went through it.
You can talk
as
to
well.
them and help.
You're allowed to toot your own horn, Jessie.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I would want somebody who I can talk to, who understands, who's already walked in my shoes, who's been through it.
Well, you go to therapy and they're like, you don't know what I've been through. You just talk. Yeah.
So That being said, Michelle,
You're offering
after
your
we're done,
services.
if you want to give your information to Katie and Katie can give it to me, I'd be more than happy to talk to you on the phone and possibly even talk to your son as well and continue that mentorship with your son to kind of help him also. That's entirely up to you, but you're more than welcome to do that.
Michelle, can I ask a question of you?
Yeah.
When you get him into independent living, is your intention to remain a part of his life, or is this you?
Yeah, I mean, the plan is to still do what we had planned when he came back from residential, is to work him back into our home. We wanted him to come home, but he was triggering PTSD with the other kids and with me.
Absolutely.
And so he lives in a camper, and my husband and I split our time at a camper with him. So he gets a parent, and the other kids get a parent, and then we swap out and try to get some kind of self-care in there.
That's so hard, but it really does sound like you're
dedicated. You're committed. Yes.
And I think
so
that's something really important to keep reminding him of, that, you're not throwing him away. He's still a part of your family. You still are going to be a part of his life. He just, needs to transition into independent living, but that doesn't mean that he's no longer your son, and that, you'll still continue to love him.
I love you ritual, pizza on Friday or Sunday dinner or whatever fits him and us, is what we're hoping for. So anyway, that's really helped. He's been in independent living, and they're working on his driver's license. And honestly, he does a whole lot better with them than he does with me.
And that's fine.
And the wraparound services really is someone for me to talk to, but they're arranging a mentor that just graduated with his counseling degree out of University of Wyoming. And he's going to hopefully start, but it'll take Cody a while to accept that. But he did really well. Like you were saying, in your situation, he has several people I let him keep in contact with, which is probably some ethical violation, at the RTC. So he has had their personal cell phone numbers with their permission and mine, so that he can call and say, I hate my mom, and get out whatever he needs to say. And they know differently than others because they don't triangulate back. Does that make sense? They don't come back and say, well, you really do have a crappy mom, and I don't believe how she did that, and how could she just do all that evil stuff,
The triangulation is exhausting.
Like the first foster family.
Not taking sides.
The first foster family after he went to psychiatric care. He's with everything else. So they didn't know better.
Got it.
Okay, I don't want to take up everybody's question time.
No, you didn't know. That was a great question, and I'm so glad that you asked it. And I will definitely, if you want, get you and Jessie connected outside of this.
Absolutely.
Okay, Debbie, you can unmute yourself and ask your question if you want, and Michelle, you can mute yourself if you don't mind.
Okay. Hi, how are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So we have a daughter, Maggie, and she is, we adopted her from China when she was 2. Like she was in a good orphanage. She was in a Half the Sky orphanage, so they did hold her and stuff. And then she, last June, things got so bad that, so we had her for 14 years. She went to live with her aunt and uncle. And she seems to be doing a lot better there because she was not doing well here at all. But basically she says that, I'm not her mother. And and what I wanted to know is, it seemed like you bonded with your dad a little bit. And I really felt like we did bond like earlier. It was really the last 2-3 years that it spiraled into something very scary and very I don't know, my oldest daughter was afraid that she was gonna murder me.
Did that spiral start with the teenage years?
No, it started slowly, but I always thought it was like, oh, well, like she would get angry and then say something like, well, you're not my mom, or something would come out. And I just thought, oh, it's because you're angry. And I thought since we got her so young that that she would be okay because, you know, I mean, she was little.
Right. Yes.
And
I hear that a lot of times.
And she's
like,
like,
oh, I got this one when it was 6 months old, or I adopted this child at 6 months. And a lot of the times parents will say, oh, because we got them early on. They don't.
I took them right from the hospital.
Trauma or this and that. That's not
and
true.
so this wasn't even on my radar at all, because I thought she bonded with me. I mean, all day long she would tell me she loved me. You know.
The gal just sent you, baby. Gotcha. Okay. No, go ahead.
My question is like, so I told her, I told her like at the end, I was like, well, you know, we hung out all the time. I homeschooled her. I was with her all the time. I spent so much time with her, dedicated to her, whatever she's interested in. I was like, I felt like I was really bonded. And I was like, you would tell me you love me and all this stuff. And then she's like, it was all a lie. It wasn't true. I would just do that to get what I wanted. And I was like, so part of me is like, well, is that like part true? Because how do I feel this bond? You know what I mean? And now she seems like it doesn't, like she doesn't have any, like, it's not like she's turning back going, oh, I'm so sad that I don't have my mom with me anymore. You know, it's like, she's moving on, you know? But I mean, I just wonder, like, was that bond, is it possible to have the bond and have just problems going from person to person? Like you,
so what
you bond with one person and then you bond with another person and then that doesn't work out. And then you bond with another person and you never
shopping.
So is your question, is she faking her bonds? What?
Or I'm trying to understand reactive attachment a little bit better. Like what happens with that bond? Like is the bond partly true, or is it you just bond with one person, then the next person? Because that's what it seems like. She hops from person to person.
Well, I think you can answer it.
Yeah. So
but I'm thinking and once they
bond. Right? Yeah. So we bond to people who will give us what we need.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of in a nutshell. Yeah. I think you sent me, Debbie, you had sent me a message on Messenger, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I was reading that here. And I think with a bond with reactive attachment, in my case, I'll use my example. There were two types of bonds that I did. One was a genuine bond with my dad because I didn't have a father figure. So I bonded with him. Problem with that is once I bonded with him, I couldn't bond with another male figure. I didn't have the ability to do to bond multiple bonds with other male figures. However, that being said, the other type of bond was a manipulation bond. So I would bond with people and only to manipulate them to get what I wanted. Once I felt that was done, I'd go bond with somebody else and repeat that same process over again. So what I'm reading, when I read your message here in Messenger, she's been with your family 14 years. The last 2 years you said were unbearable. Is it possible she was faking somehow the bond that I felt? I don't think she was faking it because she was with you for so many years. It's hard to fake a bond like that for that many years. That's just a tremendous amount of effort that she would have to put forth that, in my opinion, from my perspective, it just, our brains aren't capable of putting that much effort into faking something for that many years.
At that young of an age.
Right. So I don't think she was faking it.
I agree.
I think what's going on here is as she gets older, her brain is changing to
hormones.
Her hormones are changing, her brain is changing. And
She's learning to get manipulative.
She's starting to learn to become more manipulative. I hate that word. So I think that's what's going on. I don't think for one second that for 14 years she was faking or wasn't there. But I think now she's just starting to realize that she can use the manipulation to her benefit now, is what I think is going on.
I would agree with that assessment, Jessie. Honest to goodness.
And again, we are not professionals.
Right. No. And your
own experiences.
Guys, just an FYI, this is an attached families thing, and we have liability insurance. So we are not lawyers. We are not therapists. We are not professionals. We are just human beings.
We're trying to tell you.
You're allowed to give your opinion without ever worrying about anything coming back.
You know, that's it.
Well, I really appreciate how you guys are talking about like how to keep interacting, because I had messaged Jessie early on when she first left, like, well, what should I do? Should I just like not talk to her anymore, or just like I mean, the good thing is she's with family, so there is a connection there a little bit. I try to give her space, but I want her to know that I love her, because when she lived here, I would always tell her like, adoption's forever. I'll never leave you. I'll never have you sent away. Like, I actually said those words, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I said those words and now she's gone. I mean, she was the one saying she wanted to leave, but you
said those words and you meant them. You meant
I was just like, well, I never knew it could get so bad that she had to leave.
Well, you didn't know that she would leave you, not you leave her.
Right.
Well, she would say she wanted to leave, but I'm saying that I didn't, like, at the end, I was like, you can go to anybody, because she kept telling me there's all these people that will take me.
I understand, but I'm saying these reactive attachment disorder kids are always afraid of abandonment. They're always afraid of people leaving them. And I think that for her case, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think that she jumped ship, you know, and that
she wanted to leave you first.
Right.
And so I was like, I felt so bad for saying that.
Yeah, you're like,
oh, no. And then
I don't have any other words other than what it is. You know, I'm like, if it looks like a cat, it's a cat. If it looks like a duck, it's a duck. But to better understand is that's what I'm like, oh, she left you before you could leave her. Not that you would leave her, but she's the one in control.
But I keep trying to occasionally I try to text her. Occasionally, like I'll tell her I love you. I'll maybe send her a letter, or I'll send her a gift or something, because I feel like, well, if I do nothing, then I feel like I'm not even, like, I'm just kind of completely out of the picture. And I know that would feel bad for me.
Well, that's your daughter.
I mean, her, right? I do love her, but I also want to give her space, you know.
Right.
Okay, so, where is she again right now?
We're in Virginia, and she's in Florida with Pete's brother. So she found all these people, I guess, that, you know, she would tell them how horrible we were, and that she needed to live someplace else.
We call that parent shopping.
Yeah.
Actually, it has a name. It's parent shopping.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I just call it God's instrument to help her, because she was literally laying on the floor in her bedroom for about a year doing nothing, and it was horrible to watch. And I was like, you know, something has to give. I mean, she can't be here. She was like in fight or flight all the time. She was either fighting with us or laying on the ground, and it was just awful. And so I did it not because I don't want her to be with me, not because I don't love her. It's because she was not thriving at all. And to watch her child just suffer.
You made the best decision for your child that you could.
Right. Yeah. And it's really nice to have you guys, because, you know, a lot of people don't understand. They think, how could you have your daughter leave you? And I was
my goodness.
I was like, I love her to pieces, but when you see your child suffer that much, and you know there's a better place for them, then you let them go.
100%. 100%. And I am so sorry, because I know that must have caused you both so much pain, to let your child go live with her uncle. But just like we take our children to the hospital when they're sick, or to a specialist, or to this, you made the best decision for the well-being of your child. Now, how long has she been there? I'm so sorry.
Almost
How
8
long?
years. She went in June. And one of our reasonings was that we wanted her to have a buy-in, like we wanted her to say where she's going to go, because a lot of these facilities require the children to sign off that they're there because they're over 16. And so we thought she would do better at a place she wanted to be. And she really likes her aunt and uncle, and they love her. So I felt like that was better than putting her in like an institution, and because she just wasn't, she wouldn't respond to any therapy. She wouldn't even barely go. So
whatever decision you made was the right decision. I just want to say that whatever choice you made for your child was the right decision, because no one knows your child better than the both of you. So is she, and I'm guessing that almost a year in, she's still doing well there?
Yeah, I think she is. I mean, they don't tell us a whole lot, and like, I'm trying not to parent at all. Like I said, I'm not going to parent you anymore. And like you said, like trying to establish some kind of relationship that's not like me telling you what to do. So, because I'm like, I've already done that and you don't want to listen to me. So let's just try somebody else,
Absolutely.
Somebody else and see if you can, go with them. So I don't really know. Like, I know there's been a little bit of stealing,
some of the same
and probably lying. And they did try to discipline her one time by taking away her phone. And then she just started the same thing, like laying on the floor saying, and so they got a little bit of it, but then they decided, I think they're trying to be strategic, just give her everything she wants because they know she's just going to shut down.
Well, I would personally continue what you're doing. I would continue sending letters. I would continue sending gifts. I would continue acknowledging her. I would continue to let her know that she is your daughter and you love her, so that she never actually truly feels abandoned by you, no matter what, because you keep that relationship. Jessie, do you agree with me?
Absolutely, 100%.
So I think you're on the right track, to be honest, with both of you. I would definitely continue doing that. And I do not believe at all that the bond that you had with her was fake for 14 years. The reason I originally asked you about like the teenage years is that so often when the hormones come into play,
totally
what I talk about reactive attachment disorder and trauma as autism, different on the spectrum. So you have your lower end and you have your higher end, and so what she could have been like a lower end rad child for a long time, and then those hormones hit and it could have just spiked. So I think you guys making this decision, but also doing what you're doing by staying in her life and showing that she's continued to be loved. None of us see the future. She very well may decide she wants to come home someday to her mom and dad. But I think it's important that she knows that there's that home to come home to. If there is, you know what I'm saying? If you are willing to take her back one day, she needs to always be reminded that.
Well, and then see, girls and boys are totally different. Reactive attachment disorder affects people differently. And girls, you have hormone, you have all these different things. And like with me, my stuff with my trauma started when I was 13. My dad asked my mom for a divorce after 30 years. I don't have reactive attachment disorder, but I was manipulative because I used my trauma to benefit me to get the things I wanted, and I threw tantrums. I had outbursts. I had all those things. I wanted to go live with my brother. My mom said, no, I acted out. And she said, I can't deal with you. You're going to your brother's. That's where I wanted to go to begin with. Okay.
You got what you wanted.
Thank you. And when you're 13, 14, 15, 16, there's hormones involved. There's all these things involved. But her throwing herself on the floor, having a tantrum to get what she wants, and then you saying, oh, her aunt and uncle took her phone away, and then she threw herself on the floor to get it back. Hook, line, and sinker. She knows what to do to get what she wants. And that's where you just have to go, no. But I also know pick and choose your battles, because she could be breaking windows. She could be.
Well, no, her problem is that she is so tough that she won't, like, she went years this way. Like,
Gotcha.
She wasn't doing anything. She
Right.
wasn't learning anything. She wasn't like, what's the outlook when you turn 18? She was saying,
Right.
I'm gonna go be a prostitute. I'm like, we need progress. Like, I can be as tough as possible, but she's not thriving. So why
She's
have
not
her
thriving. No, you made the
True.
best
has to
decision.
be in a
True.
different
No.
environment?
Mhm.
She had enough of us.
Yes,
Right.
you made the best decision.
Yeah. So, but she.
No, I
yeah,
was just
I
talking
think-
about the whole manipulation thing.
Oh
like,
yeah, no, I know,
in
I know. But
general.
I think that she, I think she's doing really, really well, and it's
Awesome.
just, I feel like that God provided this family, and I really, my heart goes out to when I see all these Facebook families that don't know where to send their child. That's what we were. We were like, Lord, what are we going to do? Because there's no place for them. You know, we don't have the money, or the child won't go, or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, when they need to leave the house, where do they go? There's
Right.
not a place.
It's
And
hard.
that's very hard. It's very hard. And so I feel like the Lord gave us a wonderful family who loves her.
Yes.
And, you know, and they're doing their
Right.
very best. And
There you go.
I told them, you have complete authority over her. Your
Right.
rules, not our
Make
rules. You
decisions
can do
and
whatever you want, because it's
Yeah.
your house. And that's how we play. Your house,
Right.
your rules. You know, she's got
Well,
a
that's good that you guys are all a team, and that's it. Because the common goal is to what is your daughter's name?
Maggie. Yeah.
Oh, Maggie. Yes, I wrote it down. Okay. Yeah. The common goal is for Maggie to be an acting adult in society, and to be able to participate and play by the rules, and, you know, doing all, that's all we want for our kids in general, is just to raise them good, being able to, you know, because the world sucks, for a lack of a better word. The world is tough, and we just want them to be able to get through it, and to know that we love them, you know. So I mean, my husband and I, we have 5 kids, 4 girls and a boy. Our oldest is getting married this year. She'll be 20. And like, all we can hope for is for her to be an acting person in society. Like, that's all we want for our kids, and to be able to just get through life, right?
Absolutely.
To find the good in life, and to have connections and this and that. Just be well-rounded individuals. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we are financially giving them money so that she doesn't feel like
course.
we abandoned her. Like, we're trying to provide for
Right.
her.
Well,
And,
you're like
so
Katie
we're
said,
doing what we
you guys are
can
doing everything you
to
can
make sure
to
she
help.
knows she's loved. You know, so
Exactly. Well, and like I said, I will continue to pray for you and your daughter. And for, is this your husband?
yeah, Pete. Yeah.
What's your name, sir?
Pete.
Pete.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Abby and Pete,
So
correct?
it's been the biggest.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's been the biggest heartache. It's funny, when I drove her down.
Oh, no.
I had
Good
2 huge tissue boxes, and I'm sitting here crying, going through the 2 tissue boxes, and like, her, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing, not even
Nothing.
a bye, not
Yeah.
even
And
goodbye,
you,
mom,
like,
nothing. I was
Well,
like,
that was her coping mechanism.
I was
Just
like,
shut down.
so I was like,
It
okay.
hurts, right? It
Yeah,
hurts.
it's
And-
okay. I want to give her love. She doesn't necessarily have to give me back love, because I know she's had a lot of hurt, and
Come
you
on.
know, I mean, I can imagine being adopted is very difficult, and I just want her to have healing. So
Wonderful. And
No.
thank you for sharing.
Yes. Thank you for
appreciate
opening
you
up and
both.
sharing. I know that's one of the hardest things. So, yes.
yeah. Okay.
All right.
Great. Thanks.
Anyone else have any questions before we wrap this up? All right, then what I'm gonna do is, Jessie, if you wouldn't mind typing into the chat box your new social media
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Broken.
and your contact
For IG.
information for anybody that would like to take part in your upcoming mentoring services, how to reach out to you. This way it's part of what I post publicly for you. Wonderful. It's there. Love it. And so I will make sure that we provide that on all our social media for everyone as well, because we're here to support you, Jessie, the way you support all of
Thank you
Attached
very
Families.
much. We appreciate it very much. Jessie and I both very much.
We are grateful
Cell
to.
number is his cell number, and you can text him. Okay.
Perfect.
Text,
Jessie
whatever,
and Brenda,
email.
thank you for another wonderful conversation. I'm so grateful to you both. Attached Families is grateful to you both. Don't get so big and famous with your new business that you're starting that you forget Attached Families.
Oh, we would never, Katie. We love you.
Yeah, we appreciate you having us again.
And we will continue to make sure that people know that you're starting this new endeavor. We're so excited.
Yes.
And we will definitely incorporate with, we'll talk offline about incorporating your blog into our website and promoting that as well.
Awesome,
And
Katie. We appreciate
just a
your
little
support.
side off of, the rad whole situation, but because I love my girl and I want to give her a shout out. Brenda is a skin-tastic phenom as well, and she can also be
Instagram.
She can also be found on Instagram, and I just to give you a little shout out because we love you so much. And for everyone that joined us today, thank you for your time. I'm sorry we went over, but I always feel like it's worth it even when we go over the required times. It's because we're having good conversation. And this will be posted on all our social media and our YouTube channel, Attached Families, and we'll get it uploaded on the website and the Facebook page, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we love you, the Hogsetts. We love you, Jessie and Brenda. Mwah. Thank you, everybody from Attached Families that joined us. And Jessie, did you have anything else you wanted to say before I let it go?
No, we just appreciate everybody attending and allowing us to talk and share, and hopefully we can do this again in the future.
Oh, we're gonna. I'm always like knocking on Jessie's door.
I'm all knock away, Katie. Go ahead. We're all for it.
Thank you. I love you both. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, Katie.
Bye-bye.